Morning sunlight streamed through the diner's wide glass windows, glinting softly on the silver tabletops. The place was called Mabel's Morning, an old-fashioned American diner on the edge of a small Michigan town. The air was thick with the scent of frying bacon, coffee, and the faint mustiness of old wood tea. Exactly 8:15. The door creaked open and in walked Walter Branson, 81 years old. He was the kind of man who commanded quiet respect the moment you saw him. His back slightly stooped, but his steps steady, gray-white hair neatly combed back, a worn red flannel shirt with frayed cuffs. He always sat at the same booth by the window, facing the street. It was his seat. Same time, same place, same black coffee. Every day. Walter was a Korean War veteran. Half a century ago, he dug trenches along the frozen Han River, watching friends fall beside him. When the war ended, he came home, got married, worked, raised a son, retired. His wife had passed 10 years ago, and his son, Thomas, had long since left. Now he lived alone in a creaky wooden house at the edge of town. He didn't talk much, didn't bother anyone. His quiet morning ritual, coffee and toast at Mabel's, was his small piece of peace. That morning felt no different from any other. The young waitress, Kelly, was wiping down tables. A soft old tune hummed from the radio. Outside, a flag flapped lazily in the wind. Everything was calm, until a voice shattered the quiet. You kidding me? You trying to rob me, or what? Walter looked up at the counter. A man in his 30s was yelling at Kelly. Stocky, tattooed from neck to forearm, eyes hard and mean. On the counter lay a crumpled bill and a half-eaten burger. Sir, that's for the 2 meals you ordered, Kelly stammered. Bullshit. The man slammed his hand on the counter. The glass tipped over, spilling coffee everywhere. The diner went silent. Walter frowned slightly. He didn't say anything, just watched. The man noticed him. What the hell you looking at, old man? Walter said nothing, lifted his coffee cup calmly. I'm talking to you. The man stalked toward him, heavy boots thudding. Other customers shrank back into their seats. Kelly's voice trembled. Please, sir, just calm down. Before she could finish, the man reached Walter's booth. Slap. The sound cracked through the diner. Walter's head jerked to the side. His glasses clattered onto the table. Coffee splashed across his shirt. He didn't hit back. Slowly, he raised a trembling hand to his cheek. His eyes weren't angry, just quiet. The kind of silence that comes from surviving everything. N01 moved. N01 spoke. Kelly's hands shook. Her lips pale. Sir, please leave, she whispered. The man sneered, turned away, swaggering back to his stool like a victor. Walter didn't move. He stared at his spilled coffee for a long while. The room was thick with unease, shame hanging in the air. Walter thought of the battlefield long ago, how fear was never the worst enemy. Indifference was. Watching cruelty unfold and saying nothing. That was the real defeat, he sighed, set his cup down gently. Just then, the bell over the door jingled. Ding! Several figures walked in, boots thudding heavy on the wooden floor. They were bikers, leather jackets, patches of skulls and flames on their backs. Hell's Angels. The air in the diner shifted instantly. The man in front was tall and broad-shouldered, his beard streaked with gray, his presence commanding. He glanced around, then froze when his eyes landed on the booth by the window. Dad? Walter looked up. It took him a few seconds to recognize the face. Thomas Branson. His son. 5 years. The last time they'd spoken was at the funeral. Thomas had stormed out, shouting he'd never come back. Walter's throat tightened. He wanted to speak, but no words came. Thomas stepped closer, sat across from him. Without a word, he placed his rough, grease-stained hand over his father's trembling one. Who hit you? He asked quietly. Walter didn't answer, just shook his head. Thomas turned toward the counter. The tattooed man was still there, laughing with his buddy. Thomas's expression hardened, his eyes cold as steel. The diner went dead still. The man noticed, smirked. What? You calling back up, old man? He puffed out his chest, swaggering toward them. Your boy, huh? He gonna save you now? Thomas stood up. Behind him, the other bikers rose too, their jackets gleaming under the light, rows of skulls and flames. Nobody breathed. Thomas didn't raise his voice. He just said, calm and steady. The man you hit is a Korean War veteran. He fought so you could sit here and eat your damn breakfast in peace. The smirk faded from the man's face. Thomas's voice stayed low but sharp as iron. You think hitting him makes you tough? It doesn't. It makes you small. The diner went completely silent. Even the radio seemed to stop. The man's jaw twitched. His bravado drained away. Thomas didn't move, didn't threaten. He didn't have to. The quiet weight of the moment and the silent presence of the bikers behind him was enough. Finally, the man muttered, I didn't mean to, and stumbled toward the door. The bell rang as he left, its echo stretching thin and long that Kelly's eyes brimmed with tears. Someone whispered, I'm sorry. Another customer came over and patted Walter's shoulder. Thomas sat back down, poured his father a fresh cup of coffee. Dad, he said softly, I've been drifting for years. Didn't think this was how we'd meet again. Walter gazed out the window, sunlight spilling across the table between them. The first thing war teaches you, he said quietly, is never strike in anger. The second thing, it teaches you not to turn family into a battlefield. Thomas's throat tightened. His eyes softened. I was young, he murmured. I thought you didn't care. I was wrong. Walter shook his head. I was always waiting for you to come home. A few simple words, and 15 years of silence melted away. After that day, Thomas started coming to Mabel's morning every morning, sometimes with his biker brothers, sometimes alone. He fixed Kelly's broken coffee machine, wiped tables, bought his father the newspaper. People in town began to see the Hells Angels differently. They weren't the rough outlaws everyone feared. They were loyal, protective, kind in their own way. They helped stranded drivers, repaired bikes for free, even backed up the sheriff when things got messy. The town changed, and no one ever raised their voice in the diner again. Because everyone remembered that morning, when an old man was struck, and a son answered with dignity instead of violence. By spring, Walter's health began to fade. Thomas walked with him to the lake every day. Their talks were simple now, about the weather, the war, cars, and Walter's favorite baseball team. That summer, Walter passed away quietly in his sleep. That on his nightstand was a photograph. Young Walter holding baby Thomas in the golden light of a setting sun. At the funeral, the whole town came. Dozens of motorcycles lined the road, engines rumbling in a deep, respectful harmony. Thomas knelt before the grave, placed an old military medal on the stone. Dad, he whispered, I've met a lot of tough men in my life, but you're the one who taught me that real strength is kindness. The breeze swept across the cemetery, rippling the flag overhead. Somewhere in the distance, engines roared again, low and steady, like an echo of memory. From that day on, the booth by the window at Mabel's morning stayed empty. A cup of black coffee always sat there. Every morning, sunlight caught the rising steam, as if Walter were still there, watching the street, calm, content, a faint smile on his lips. And Thomas, sitting at that same table, finally found his place again. No longer a lost rider, but a son, a man who had learned what it truly means to love and to honor.